As you know, I set aside some time here to do a live stream just sharing about my upcoming Foundations of Extraordinary Love program, which is filling now. We start on June 6th. And I'm just here to share with you why, what about it causes it to stand apart from a lot of other relationship programs. There are a lot of other beautiful relationship programs. Marissa, is that you that I see? Oh my goodness, how happy am I seeing you? She actually was one of the graduates from one of the previous Foundations of Extraordinary Love programs, and she's just a being that I love greatly. So anyways, I'm just here to share about what it is that I've discovered that works for smart, gifted women in attracting a partner, in creating long-term relationship, and really just that creates a space inside of ourselves to be the match for the love of our life. Because we live in a world where there are these things called our programming, our conditioning, where we bought into all sorts of different sort of misperceptions about ourselves and who we are and what rules about lovability are and all of this stuff. Hi, Instagram, sorry, I'm gonna move you for a second. And the reality is there is a deconditioning process that goes into creating a healthy relationship, because very few of us we did not learn the skills, let alone how to be a healthy, secure adult in a lot of ways, because a lot of us had negative programming that went in, let alone the skills that go into being in a committed, loving relationship with another who has who also has their bag of bones that they're dealing with. So this is an approach that what I have found that it creates a format for us to reconstruct from the inside out the very foundation that we're viewing ourselves in relationship through. So that way we can really experience the joys of a relationship, where a relationship that's based on respect, that's based on being adored, where we can really experience ourselves as women in particular as being cherished, as feeling relaxed, being taken care of, and taken care of in a way where, when a healthy, strong, empowered man comes into our world, like the nature of the masculine wants to provide and protect for us. So there's something that's just incredible feeling like when our heart is being held by a good, healthy man. And so to me, the deeper win out of all of this is just so many women spend years emotionally suffering on the roller coaster of wanting love, not being in an unhappy relationship, being single forever. There's just a lot of pain that women struggle from. And I'm just really here as one of many to be part of the solution, or to be part of the path that shows a new way, where there is a new way to show up inside of relationships. So today I'm going to be sharing about a process that, hello, Joe. Hello. Hi, Phil. I'm going to be sharing about the process that I've discovered that just really works for conscious women to help them get unstuck, to really increase and align their vibration of love, which, by the way, I put together a whole new free workshop that I'm doing on Tuesday that is, it's called Prepare Your Heart for Love, and it's 10 ways to really increase your vibrational standing in love. And it's through, after all the years that I spent studying with mystics in Egypt, with gurus and sadhus in India, all the time that I spent apprenticing in Glastonbury, this is like where I call upon my mystical bag of tricks. So this call, it's super fun. It's complimentary. DM me if you want more information, if you want to get on it. So it's 10 ways to really up-level, increase your vibration with the state of love through daily practices. And I've boiled it down to 10 core daily practices that really, really, really support. You don't have to do all 10 of them in one day, but that really support us in aligning our consciousness, our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors with love. Hello, welcome. Love to see everyone coming on. So what I want to be talking about today is the path that I've discovered that really supports conscious women in releasing blocks and barriers, in getting unstuck, in letting go of beliefs that have been sabotaging love, and to really clarify what the shifts are that support women in experiencing success in their relationships. And so that way we can really fast track this process, because I see so many women spending a lot of time and years, quite frankly, suffering in not being able to figure out the relationship game. They're either in a relationship that they're unhappy with, and there's all the emotional energy that goes into that, or they're like wanting a relationship and it just isn't panning out. So, one of the things that I just really want to establish here, though, is that this is not about magical thinking. It's not a quick fix. This is not about, snap your fingers, give your wish list, to Santa Claus, God in the sky, and then you're going to get what you want. It really is about, this is a process that requires that we show up. We show up with an open mind, an open heart, a willingness to look at maybe what's been in the shadows, look at some of the old stories and old beliefs that we've been telling ourselves, and also to let go of these stories that tell us that we're not okay as we are. Because at the end of the day, the time has come where we women are standing up everywhere, standing up inside of the truth of who we are, in our radiance, in our power, in our glory, in our majesty. And to be able to bring this into the arena of relationship is extraordinary. And like I said, it's not an overnight fix. It really does take action. It takes knowing what the clear path and the clear steps are to success, to really successfully transforming our relationship trajectory. There's a level of needing a clear sense as to like what it is that's blocking me. So now how do I know how to move through it? And the common mistake that so many women think, especially women that have been in personal development world, is they think they've got it all figured out because they know it all. And really what I'm here for is to say you may have the conceptual information, but if you look out into your life and you're looking into your relationships and they're just not reflecting you to you, they're not reflecting ease, they're not reflecting your light back to you, then that is an opportunity to go in and clean out the closets, unpack some things, lay some things down, and to really step into a more authentic, genuine, embodied expression of yourself. So, while I'm not suggesting that you need a man to feel fulfilled by any means, I am a huge advocate for, and studies corroborate this, the number one foundation for longevity, for health, for happiness and prosperity really does come from lifelong, long-term love, because we are pack animals. We're bonding creatures. We need one another. And there's nothing like relaxing into the loving embrace of our beloved who sees us, who's holding for us. This does not mean that we have to be perfectly healed and resolved. It just means coming together in a sanctuary of love and relationship. So if you relate to any of this, if you are self-aware, if you are spiritually awakening, if you've done a lot of personal development work, but in your daily life, you're alone and you don't want to be, and you feel confused by this, or maybe you're feeling angry that it's not happening any faster, or deep down, you have this vision of love in your heart, but the men that you're meeting, they're just not matching up with your vision. Or if you're just feeling confused as to what you can expect at this stage in your life, maybe you're in midlife, maybe you're beyond, maybe you're just divorced, maybe you're wondering, like, what can I really expect at this time? Then this is for you. I've created this process because what I found is that this is the common starting point for so many of us. We feel confused, we feel frustrated, we feel resigned, we feel skeptical, yet there's a calling in our hearts. I know this was my starting point when I started on this journey. It's a starting point of hundreds of other women that have walked with you. And what I found is that these feelings and frustrations that we all experience, they're actually masking a deeper challenge that most conscious women struggle with. And the real problem is that we haven't activated the keys that really call in extraordinary love with an exceptional partner. And I'm going to be sharing these within a moment, because what I found in conscious women who have really exceeded in the area of relationship, they know this. They know that once you activate these keys and make the specific shifts that are necessary, which I'm going to guide you through here today, when you make these shifts, you'll truly have the power to finally attract someone that does match your vision of extraordinary love, or to really create a whole lot more space, connection, and fulfillment in your existing relationship. And what I found is what happens when you meet that person, all the years of loneliness, all the feelings of unworthiness, all of it just gets healed and washes away. I mean, that was my experience when I met Nicholas. Like, up until meeting Nicholas, like, oh my God, this was the area that I suffered in so greatly. And my pattern was always to be prowling for the one. I did a podcast this morning with one of my best friends, Christine Kassler, and we were talking about this, how we're kind of on the polarity of the spectrum. Like, her pattern before she met her beloved Stefanos was to be hyper independent, uber successful, like really, like she's got it, she's Wonder Woman. and like, I don't need a man. And my pattern was whenever a man would come along, I would totally lose myself and I might lose a sense of identity. And all of my energy circuits and emotional energy would get plugged into him or the relationship. And obviously that just didn't work. So for me, you know, having what I found is when Nicholas came in and having this kind of love in my life where I learned how to stay connected inside, where I could share myself without losing myself, where I could really be me. And the more that I was me, the more he loved me. And that meant uncomfortably speaking into what I needed or wanted. That meant really, really risking a lot of deeper truths about myself, especially ones that I did not feel, you know, where I had shame around them or just where I felt uncomfortable. But what I found that from being in this relationship, it really gave me the confidence, you know, it gave me the confidence to shine my light even brighter and to even live more fully into my highest path. So there is no greater catalyst that I've found than sharing life with our beloved. And it is just such a joy for me to see women wake up all over the place and actualize this for themselves. So again, I'm Gabriella Taylor. If you don't know me, I'm a relationship specialist. I'm the founder of Extraordinary Love, transformational educational programs for women. And my history, what brought me here was the path of pain. I had suffered through so many breakups. I had suffered through so many bad romances, you know, way before Lady Gaga sang about it. I suffered through years of sexual abuse. I grew up in an alcoholic home. So there was a lot of confusion around intimacy, around connection, around being honest, around, there were just a lot of mixed messages. And so what I found is that through my process of learning how to restore a sense of self to myself and how to share this with a man, I've developed a process through it, not only through 1,000 hours of interviewing women to really discover what the common denominators were where women suffered, but what I found is that through this process that there were 5 key shifts that a woman needed to work through and to activate in order to really open her to a successful experience in relationship. Because the goal here, we need to shift the lens that we're looking at relationship through, the lens that we're looking at ourselves through, and the lens that we're looking at relationship through. We need to look at where we may be operating out of alignment with who we know who we are on the deepest level, and to open our eyes perhaps to things that have been previously hidden that we didn't know, where we were giving out signals about ourselves to men, maybe where there are certain ways that sounds that we make or facial expressions that we have that give out really mixed messages. Or maybe there's things where we say yes when we really mean no, or we mean no when we actually want to say yes. So there's a big opportunity here for women to really learn how to stand in the truth of their experience and bring this into relationship. So what I found, the 5 key shifts are that conscious women really need to make, you know, number 1 is get crystal clear on what you are committed to creating. Like, this is so important because the mistakes that women commonly make are being stuck in waiting, in wishful thinking, stuck in unclarity, being really unclear about what type of man brings out their best, being stuck in chemistry confusion, thinking that just because they're hot chemistry, then they're supposed to be together. They're feeling really stuck in being unclear on what their values are, or stuck on thinking that if they just create a vision board or an intention, that's enough to bring it in. Or stuck thinking that just by wanting to create long-term relationship or to up-level your relationship, that's enough. Because really what happens is when we stay stuck in this wishful thinking, if we're not clear on what it is that we're committed to creating, we typically keep over-investing in the wrong person, or it kicks up all this resistance because we don't trust ourselves to not recreate the patterns from the past. So key number 1 is to really get crystal clear on what you're committed to creating. And part of that, what I found, is that women who really succeed in this area, they're committed to doing these things. They get super clear on what they are truly committed to creating, and they no longer sit back and wait. They get engaged, they do things differently, they try new things. And one of the things that I teach in my programs, in my Foundation of Extraordinary Love program, is how to really clarify your hell yeses, like your non-negotiable, absolute must-haves, what you absolutely need to having a mate in order to thrive in a relationship, which is so different from just being open and sort of having your checklist of priorities that you want from a man, but the checklist could be 10 pages long and it might in fact be unrealistic, or it might be unrealistic, or it's actually shielding where you're ambiguous about relationship, where you're not sure, where you're ambivalent. And so it's easier to have these unrealistic ideals instead of really getting clear on what the deeper essence is the deeper essence is of the quality of the man that you're calling in. So this is crucial, that we also, that women that succeed in this area, they are clear on what their hell no's are, what they're like, deal breaker, walk away, red flag, like I am not hanging around for this. I'm not going to spend any more emotional energy involved in this. And instead, like I said, get really clear on what type of partner brings out our best. Someone who's financially stable, who's emotionally attuned, who will protect and provide for you, who will cherish you, who's easy to be with, where it's really easy to be with them. Somebody who keeps his word, somebody who takes care of his physical belongings, his space, his body, his health, his home, his car, somebody who's actively invested in his well-being. These are all signals and markers of a healthy, well-adjusted man. The number two key that I find that women who succeed in this area is they really, really need to let go of the story, or they've let go of the story and stand up inside of being the mirror of truth for how lovable you truly are. So many of us walking around with these deep-seated stories under the scenes that are saying, I'm not lovable or I'm not worthy. And because of that, we've learned to adapt through all these coping mechanisms. And one of the things that studies is showing is how 80% of our experience, our happiness in life, is based on what is happening internally, our beliefs, our feelings, our thoughts about things. 80% is based on our internal experience. Only 20% has to do with external circumstances. So this piece of letting go of the old story and really be the mirror of truth for ourselves requires that we look at that 80% level, because whatever we feel that we deserve or believe is possible or isn't possible, any old interpretations that we may be carrying about past experiences that are shaped by the messaging of our culture based on what was modeled, we internalize these, whether we know it or not, and they are actively influencing our relationship experience today. And so what this goes into creating, and in Foundations of Extraordinary Love, we have 3 whole models devoted to this. First, we look at your love story. Your love story is based on what happened to you, what your prior experience was, and what is it that you tell yourself about love? What is the story, the narrative of I always, I never? And then we connect that with what's called your intimacy model. Your intimacy model is based on what you saw growing up, modeled by the grown-ups around you, your culture, and the messages that you received based on what you saw. And then this typically influenced our love story, the experiences that we had, and the story of I always, I never. And then all of this is held together in what I call your love print. It is your blueprint for relationship that has an inherent design in it. And what does the design do? It attracts the form, the outer form, the quality of the partnership, or the dynamic that you continue to revolve around. So it's the type of person that you call in, or the type of dynamic you call in. And the second part that this governs is who you become in the relationship. Because ladies, we change in relationship until we do this work. So there's 3 modules that piece together updating your intimacy model, shining the light on your love story, and really creating a new love print. And what I found when we start unpacking these old stories, it plays out through these common myths. So if you've ever heard yourself saying these myths, such as, one of the top myths is something is wrong with me or something is wrong with the men. Either I'm too much or I'm not enough. Either I'm too independent, I'm too successful, I'm too strong, I'm too self-aware, or I'm too needy, or I'm too overweight, or I'm too unattractive. Or I'm not enough, I'm not successful enough, or I'm not feminine enough, or I'm not healed enough, or I'm not young enough. So we either internalize that something is wrong with me, I'm too much of this or not enough of that, or there's something wrong with him and we judge him. We're like, either he's not initiating, he's not doing what I want him to do, he's not taking the lead, he's not mind reading, he talks too much, he doesn't ask me enough questions. He's not making enough eye contact. So myth number one has us go default to either something's wrong with me or something's wrong with him. Myth number two is that he has to make the first move. I can't tell you how many single women in particular are sitting on the sidelines waiting for the man to make the first move. And this is probably one of the most painful myths that really cause women to suffer, because there's inside of this like waiting for him to take the first move, we don't feel like we've got power. We don't feel like we've got choice. And the reality is, and there's all these studies that show that in fact women typically, it's something like 90% of romantic interactions that occur in a public place, 90% of them have to do with the woman giving some signal that it's safe for her to approach, either through a relaxed body language, soft eye contact, a flirty smile. Like I think it's like upwards 90% of men, they take their cues from us first before they get the signal that it's safe to approach. So this myth of he has to make the first move, it is a complete misnomer. It's a complete misunderstanding. And it's different from waiting for the man to be the aggressor, or having us thinking that we need to be the aggressor, but it's engaging. It's creating a generative connection, especially in a public space, by letting him know that you're safe to approach and that you're open to approach. Myth number three is that I can do it on my own. So we walk around avoiding relationships altogether, assuming that happiness is found within ourselves or just our friendships, when in reality, like, we've become so hyper dependent that we forget that it's okay to need someone, that it's okay to need one another. Or we're in this experience where we're resisting codependence, where maybe we had a level of codependence where we would lose ourselves. That was my path in relationships. So then we're resisting, there's this fear that we're going to be engulfed by another. So therefore we run the myth of I can do it alone, I can do it on my own. Or we have misunderstandings around healthy attachment, around intimacy. We have these misunderstandings around connection and healthy interdependence. So that's a lot of what fuels myth number two. Myth number three that a lot of conscious women get really stuck in is this idea that I just need to stay open. If I just stay open, then I just need to stay open. Like, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But where this becomes a problem is when it has us discounting our own discomfort or discounting our own red flags. And with this myth of I just need to stay open, it has us either swinging to sky high expectations with men, to then normalizing, settling, tolerating, just accepting the crumbs, when we have the story of I just need to stay open. Myth number four is that there's no good men, so I have to settle. Again, this is another one where I hear women all the time, all the good men are taken. There are no good men. Where are they? They're everywhere. But when we're living in this myth where we're either assuming that all men are unfaithful, that they're unemployed, that the good ones are taken, if we're assuming that we need to settle for less, that we need to lower our expectations or sacrifice something that's really meaningful for us, or if we're assuming that if we're already partnered that it's too late, or that he has to change, it's like all on him. That's where it tells us that there is an opportunity to adjust how we're showing up and viewing relationship. Because the bottom line is, if there's any part of us that's thinking that we have to settle, that signals some limiting belief in there that needs to be cleaned up and cleared out. And finally, the last myth is, if it's meant to be, it'll be. Where we're praying, hoping, waiting, yet not taking any action at all. And what this actually does is it masks fear, it masks uncertainty, it masks a deep sense of powerlessness. So in Foundations of Extraordinary Love, I target all of these myths by really walking women through a step-by-step process, a step-by-step inventory of how our past may be unconsciously influencing our current dating and relating experience, by making conscious that which may be running behind the scenes just under the surface. So as I said, we walk through your intimacy model, we walk through updating your love story, we walk through creating a new love print, because the goal here is to really make it conscious, to begin to see how we've been acting out in ways that then create evidence that the old story is true. Like, I used to have such a story that men cannot be trusted, that men could not be trusted, that men will always leave, that men would always bail. And then I would always call in men that corroborated that story by leaving me, by cheating, by checking out, by bailing. And it wasn't until I really shifted, did this deeper work, so that way the grip of the old story could loosen. And that way I could really, let go of this idea of like, because to me it was connected to, there was the story of like men always leave. So if men always leave, then that means I need to adapt myself or pretzel myself or be the perfect girlfriend so that way he won't leave. And it just kept me all bundled up and like inside. But as the grip of that old story loosened and I was able to really connect with the deeper truth of my lovability, the deeper truth of my well-being, the deeper truth of recognizing that the more that I take care of myself, the more that I'm really representing myself in ways that allow love to come in by not abandoning myself, by not sabotaging myself. And what I found is and when I support women in this, when we connect with the deeper truth, something shifts. There's something powerful that shifts. And then we can start showing up in ways in our life that really reflects this shift and that really reflects the deeper truth, is that we are lovable, that we are glorious, beings that are more than worthy or deserving of love. I mean, love is where we come from. Love is our essence. And so through this process, we learn to relate to ourselves in a new way where we can really reveal the truth of who we are, come out from any patterns where we've been hiding behind this old story, and really look at ways to not only reveal who we are, but how to make this manifest in our life. And this is something that is so extraordinary to see how effectively it works. And a big part of this is by really, and this is why I've created Foundations of Extraordinary Love in an 8-week program, it's to really give a new perspective, a new orientation, and a new lens to look at relationship through. Because as we become aware of what the old stories are, it's not just enough to see them. Because often what women do is when we see the old stories, then we start judging ourselves. And so that's something where this is really about an intimate relationship with our ability to connect with ourselves, especially when we need our own support. And the shift comes when we're really able to see our challenges, to see these old stories and pain through the eyes of love. And the way that I teach women this is through a process that's called the tending process that really supports women in shifting from self-criticism and self-judgment into self-acceptance. And what I found is this expands our capacity for emotional intimacy. Because I just can't tell you how many women, and I learned this, I've been working within the fields of transformational development for years now. And it never fails to amaze me how many of us are attached to our old stories of suffering, how we stay stuck. And it's not because there's something wrong with us or we're out to sabotage ourselves, but it's because of the power of homeostasis. It's like our homeostasis, we have these intimacy set points that they're set at a particular level, and it has us revolving around this baseline of normalized discontent, of dissatisfaction, of settling for crumbs, staying alone, repeating the same arguments. And the beauty of recognizing this is that our homeostasis, its job is to keep us in stasis. So that means it's going to resist growth. And what is growth? Growth means, being the mirror of truth to ourselves. Growth means behaving in new ways that are actually more authentic and genuine. And so what I found, when our homeostasis is designed to resist growth and to resist change and to resist transformation, it's so important that we do a process. There's a way where by doing, 2%, offering ourselves 2% more compassion when we're melting down, where we start up-leveling our homeostasis. It's like turning that internal thermostat up. just by even being able to be present with our feelings, maybe 3% more when anger arises, or when grief arises, or when we're having, when we're on the roller coaster of emotional upset, instead of judging ourselves or making ourselves wrong for it, to be able to turn towards ourselves and to connect with ourselves, to connect with the truth in our heart, to connect with the wise woman inside. Because one of the things that I found, and you can probably relate to this, but the shadow feminine thrives in recycling old, familiar, hurt feelings, and by keeping our deeper needs hidden and invisible. So I'm going to say that again, because there's a way where our homeostasis and the shadow feminine thrives at keeping us invisible, keeping us disempowered, disconnected, and invisible. And I know your conscious mind might be like, oh, that doesn't apply to me. I'm really committed to my growth work. I hear you. I completely get it. Yet we've got to take into consideration the power of resistance, and the resistance that's designed to keep us small, to keep us invisible, to keep our deeper needs and wants hidden. Because the truth is, it's so much more vulnerable to express the truth of what we want and the truth of who we are, especially when we don't feel adequately resourced inside, if we don't feel confident, if our self-esteem is challenged. And so by not speaking up, by staying invisible, by assuming that our needs are a burden, by expecting people to mind read for us, by checking out, it keeps us in this pattern of disconnection and disempowerment. And there is such a healing process that comes in, which to me, it's the sweet spot of this Foundations of Extraordinary Love program. It's the sweet spot of really teaching a woman how to expand her capacity for intimacy by learning how to connect with herself, by learning how to offer herself, to be a mirror for herself, to be a voice of love for herself, to really stand up in an honoring of who she is. Because the reality is none of us were taught this. Very few of us were taught this. We were taught to turn away from pain. We were taught to turn away from ourselves. We were taught to run. And this is exactly what plays out in relationship, because there are few places like relationship that will activate our core challenges, our core wounds, our core pain. And by having an orientation that chooses to turn towards ourselves through the challenges and chooses to turn towards our partner during challenges, this is what transforms everything. And this is how we start increasing our homeostasis, our intimacy set point, so that way we can really call in love. So the bottom line here, I'm going to be wrapping up here, and thank you for being with me. But I really invite you to consider, like, if the mirror of your relationship is not reflecting what you want, whatever that is, I truly invite you just to consider taking a look. Are any of these myths playing out? Are any of these old stories playing out? Like, what is it that's keeping your baseline revolving around discontent? And if you're ready, if you're truly ready, like if this is the time, because maybe it's not the time for you. There is such a thing as divine timing. But if this is your time and you're truly committed to transforming your experience with relationship, I sincerely invite you to reach out to me, to consider joining my next Foundations of Extraordinary Love program. It starts June 6th. It's an extraordinary opportunity to really come together within a group of committed, conscious women and do some powerful, deep healing work, which within 8 weeks will really allow you a more profound, connected experience in yourself, in your heart, and with the men in your world. So I'd love to see you there. I'm going to drop the link in the comments below. And until next time, God bless.